Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Family by Design. Liz and I absolutely had a blast recording this particular podcast about Are You Marriage Material? You're going to be so blessed. Make sure and share this with not only single people in your life, but also people that are already married. There's a lot in here to unpack that's really going to bless you and enrich your life and your marriage. So be blessed as you listen.
So here is a great question for a lot of us. We're going to really kind of talk about like singleness to being married and all the in between. But a good question to ask yourself as you are single, and one question I wished I would have asked myself, and I wish you would have asked also, is, am I marriage material? And of course, I thought I was marriage material, and I was marriage material for you. But looking back, I could honestly say that I wasn't marriage material.
That wasn't a thought that we had. It was, and you hear the world, and they're like,
just get married.
Everybody, yeah, right.
Honestly, we were just burning.
Everybody looks at, everybody looks at other people, and they're like, well, are they marriage material? But the question needs to be turned back around is to ask, am I marriage material? Especially in terms of like the kingdom of God and of, Christianity. Are we fitting that mold to where, because people will often be like, God, send me a mate. And the reality is that I believe that God he can do that and will do that in his timing. And this could apply to people who are young, who have never been married, but maybe someone who's lost a spouse.
Correct, yeah.
Also somebody who could be divorced. There could be like a bunch of different scenarios. And these things could fit any of that. And people could be like, Lord, send me a spouse. And that people will I've heard people say, Lord, send me a spouse who's godly and who loves you.
Right.
But they themselves haven't really come to that place. And here's the thing is that there's debate about whether there's that one person for you or people find each other and they end up getting married. I lean way more heavy on the thing of like, there's that one person, but then people lose spouses and, people get divorced, things happen. And so then some of the other thought kind of comes in there. And so there's some real practical things that we can do. And they're not just practical, they're also spiritual that we can do to make ourselves marriage material, because health marries unhealth.
No.
Or you could say,
no, health marries health.
I know I said it wrong.
Okay.
I was just checking to see if you knew. Unhealth marries unhealth. As soon as I said it, I was like, that's not right. Unhealth marries unhealth.
Right.
Health marries health. And that is...
Opposites do not attract in this instance.
yeah, not in this particular thing. So the point is, when you find a very unhealthy person, they will typically marry an unhealthy person.
Right.
If you have a really healthy person, they will typically marry a healthy person. If you want someone who's healthy,
and you do,
I promise. If you were wanting to get married, you need to set your sights higher.
Correct.
And I understand that it can look different. I heard a story one time, or like a thing about what women expect in a marriage or in a man, and it's like when they're 20, they're expecting them to be like have a great physique and full head of hair and smart and whatever, all this stuff. And then it was like, by the time he's 30, it's like, he doesn't have to have that great of a body, but at least some hair on his head. And then by the time it gets to like 80, it's like, is he breathing? That's all I need in a man. I just need him to breathe. So, you might have some, natural physical expectations that could change and, whatever. And those things really aren't the important thing. They are important. There should be physical attraction there.
You should, we need to say that. Because sometimes, and I've heard in the recent days of people like they just want to get married, so they're willing to get married to whoever, and they were not physically attracted to one another.
That's crazy.
There should be physical attraction.
Yeah.
There should be.
Yeah.
Just gonna say.
Yeah. And there's
not the only thing, but
right. Yeah, because then you have some people that only get married because they're physically attracted. It started out in lust and they were shacking up and whatever, and next thing you know they get married.
Right.
And they don't even love each other. They don't even really care about each other. So both of those things, like there needs to be that actually, like, I'm very attracted to this person, inwardly and outwardly.
Yes.
That needs to be there. But then also in the reality that we live in a fallen world, nobody has bodies like I would assume that Adam and Eve probably had. Like we're not, we don't live in
What
that
are you
world.
saying right now?
I'm saying everybody else in the world, with the exception of you, doesn't
Okay,
have a
okay.
body like Adam and Eve.
Just kidding.
Good catch, Kent. Good save.
Good save. Good save.
Yeah. So I think the first step in becoming
Marriage material.
marriage material is just that. Like you look at yourself and say, what am I expecting out of somebody else?
Come on. This
I
is
need to
good.
raise my own level of like expectation, what I'm expecting out of myself. And this really isn't about physical things. It really is about the heart, devotion to the Lord,
Character.
becoming a healthy person,
Yeah.
our character, those kind of things. But then there is an element of physical things. So if there's things you can do, this could be harsh, but I mean, if you could drop a few pounds, that probably wouldn't hurt. I'm looking at you right now. I'm not talking
What are
to
you saying right
I don't
now?
want to be punched in the face. But there could be some natural things that like, okay, I'm gonna better myself a little bit here. There's not a problem with that. I remember a guy saying one time that he's a minister and he had this woman come up to him and said, she said, I don't think I would say this to anybody unless the Spirit of the Lord came upon me and I felt it and prompted to do so. But he came up and she's like, I want you to pray for me for a husband. And he's like, I'm not going to do that because you need to change some things. And he's like, what? And she's like, what? He said, yeah. He said, first of all, you're not any fun. What guy's going to want to marry you because you're not any fun at all? And apparently he had some kind of rapport with this woman. I don't know all the details, but it made me think, there is some growing in how we present ourselves, how we walk, and we're not supposed to be hypocritical. I mean, we are who we are, but at the same time, we need to grow and come into a greater level of health, spirit, soul, and body.
I mean, this gets into...
There's only so much you can do with the body. I think there's a lot you can do with the soul. And once you get born again, then your spirit's in good shape. But when you look at somebody, you should be able to look at them and see if they're marriage material. Are they born again? If I cannot believe the amount of people that will marry somebody that say they believe in the Lord, but they have no fruit at all. You don't want to marry somebody who's not a disciple. If you're a believer, you do not become unequally yoked. Because you can marry somebody. I mean, I just have seen this stuff even recently, even with people. Never mind, but people that I know that I'm like, really? If you'd asked me, which is why they didn't ask me because they didn't want my opinion.
Right.
They wanted to do what they wanted to do. But they marry somebody who claims to be a believer but has no fruit in their life. So A, you need to marry somebody who's a believer and has fruit showing forth in their life, and then B, are they healthy as a person? And the next thing to look at is like in the realm of their soul, their mind and will, emotions and conscience. And there's growth there. You and I are a lot healthier than we used to be.
Hallelujah.
In terms of that. And there's still room to grow there. But you don't want to marry somebody who's got a bunch of baggage. You don't want to marry a project. You want to marry somebody and be able to enjoy your life with them.
Right. And
then,
sometimes...
let me finish my train of thought
yeah.
here. And then there's the outward physical thing. Like, and I mean, you don't want to put a lot of stake in that, but if someone doesn't take care of themselves, do you think they're going to help take care of the house, or do you think they're going to run their finances well? Like, those are some things that you can kind of look at. And it might seem carnal, but there's some truth
practical.
to it. It's very
yeah,
practical.
It's okay to be practical.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then again, we're making ourselves marriage material. We're looking and asking the question, am I marriage material? Do I do those things? Am I in that place? Am I on that track to moving forward?
so let's rewind and let's go back. And wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And if you could,
I grew up on
ask-
cassette tapes, so
yes,
I know.
your younger self, like, am I marriage material? What are some things that you would have
Ooh,
maybe
that's a great question.
adjusted in yourself?
Oh, great question. So you're asking me that question right now?
Yes.
Let's go back and forth with this.
Yeah.
For me, I was born again and had a heart after the Lord, for sure. Like, that was 100% for sure. I've always loved
That's
God.
actually one of the things I was most attracted to you about.
Now it's my smoking hot body.
Definitely.
Yeah. I don't want to call it a dad bod. I prefer father figure.
sorry. That was actually really funny.
It was funny.
Wow.
Okay. What was the question again?
Okay. If you could, now knowing what you know, and you're asking yourself this question, am I marriage material? How could you talk, or what would you say to your younger self?
When I was born again, and I had a heart for the Lord, like that part was very set. But I was very, I dealt with a fear of rejection. So I would have gone in and done the work with the Lord to deal with that and rid myself of that. It's been a journey for me in that. I would have had a better, maybe learned some more things very practically about stewarding my time, stewarding finances. I feel like finances are a strength for me. Time is still one of my biggest challenges. Those would be a couple things I would go back, but more than anything,
grow in some disciplines.
Yeah, be more disciplined, but really bring myself to a place of health in my soul.
Yeah.
That's what, if I could go back, if there was just one thing, that would be it.
So maybe, what would that look like, do you think, to get healthy in your soul?
Well, I think mostly it really comes back to the Word. Mm-hmm. And this goes more in specific towards, there's a verse that says, how can a young man cleanse his way? And then it gives the answer. It says, by taking heed according to the Word. And so as a young man, I had to work through, lust issues and things. And so that was one part of an unhealth that was there in my soul. Mm-hmm. And so I would have put more time into the Word. I'd put a lot, but I needed to put more time into the Word. And I would have gotten freed up from those things faster. And then the other part of it, I believe, also would have been taken care of with the Word, which is fear of rejection, fear of man. I cared what people thought about me too much. That's also been a journey for me in my life to get free from those things. So I would have worked on those areas. Those would have been the things. And I think that this speaks to a lot about what we have to offer, especially people that are just coming into like young, getting married and going to raise a family, that kind of thing. The level of health that you're at is going to determine the level of health that your family is going to be at, most likely. Yeah. Now, when your kids get older, they have a choice, but when you can't give out something you don't have.
That's right.
And so I couldn't give out health to my kids, and I even look, and there was a measure of unhealth that, in terms of rejection and fear of man, that my kids watched me struggle through.
Yeah.
And I believe basically really I've overcome those things. But if I had done more work earlier, I could have helped take them even further.
Right.
And so, yeah.
So that's
kind of my answer. So what's your answer to this question?
I didn't understand, I think, when I was younger about relationship with the Lord. I thought, one of my biggest things that I thought is that you were the one that was called, and that I could just ride on your coattails, and that even I could just live off of your relationship with the Lord, so to speak. So if I would have known sooner to dive in deeper with the Lord, then I would have probably. And then another thing is sometimes you think you trust the Lord, and then when pressure's put on, you realize you don't really trust the Lord. And so I think growing up and some just different things, I made some vows that I would always be able to take care of myself. So then that kind of made me direct my life in certain ways. And then with me being my source, but then also just a fear of things not being taken care of and not being okay. So I struggled heavily with being afraid of, in the realm of finances, of just not having enough.
Yeah.
Ever. And so being really afraid and not knowing, and then that caused a lot of fear. That bled into our marriage heavily in different things, because I was afraid, and because I thought I was the one who was needing to take care of it, that I wouldn't communicate to you about things, and I would try to hold things on my own. And not allow you into that space. So then when things got really messy in our finances, I didn't tell you.
Yeah.
And, but I also didn't allow you like that space to lead me in that. And I didn't communicate that.
And a lot of that was because of inner vows you had made.
Yes.
And fear combination.
Yeah. That this is a real struggle for me, and I need you to help lead me in this area. So, those are some things that I would say I would go back and I would tell myself is trust the Lord, acknowledge Him, and it'll be better with you. And it is, again, this is like all going back to a lot of soul work.
Yeah.
Will you ask yourself the hard questions? Because it wasn't until, and this could, and we won't probably dive into this right now, but this could be another good podcast, is about authenticity. Neither one of us were very authentic people.
Right.
And because we weren't authentic, we weren't healthy. Because I don't think you can really, truly get healthy until you're really, truly willing to be honest.
That's right.
With where you're at, and allow God.
And as long as you're in a shame-based punishment environment,
Right.
Either in your church family, your natural family, marriage, or just within yourself. You and how you view the Lord and how you think God views you.
Yeah.
Then you'll never come to that place of health.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that this is one of the, going back to the original, like the point, like what we're talking about is, are you marriage material? And I think the simple answer is everybody that desires to get married should be. And I believe that the Lord will make that connection and let God be your matchmaker, right?
Yes.
But the question really comes down to is, are you a healthy person? And primarily, this podcast goes to people that are believers, and there needs to be a deep dive into what it means to be equally yoked or to not be unequally yoked, because Paul talks about in Corinthians, he says, do not be unequally yoked. And I think I believe the right understanding of that and the right application is that a believer should not marry an unbeliever. But I would also include in that that an unhealthy believer should not marry a healthy believer. And I would even say that two unhealthy believers, this might even be worse, when two unhealthy believers get married. And I've seen this more times than I can possibly count. I have people right now that I wish they would listen. I could think of like 5 people right now that I wish they would listen to this podcast and grow thereby, because I know so many people that want to get married, and maybe even some that are connected up with other people, and they're just not healthy. They're just not healthy. What you bring, the level of health you bring in that you have is what you will bring into the marriage. The level of unhealth that you have is what you will bring into the marriage. If you think that if you're addicted to, wrong things sexually, and you think that getting married is going to break that, you're fooling yourself. You need to get free from that stuff beforehand.
Right.
If you think, that, and this is something that ties into all this too, is like people they view a spouse as meeting their need. Mm-hmm. And if you are looking to get married to have your needs fulfilled, then you are looking to get married for the wrong reason. You should be looking to get married to bless your spouse.
That's good.
And I could probably say this maybe a little bit better. There is a place because that is part of the reason that we get married, but it's not what makes a marriage work.
Right.
Like, I'll be flat out honest. I was looking for you to fulfill me before we got married, right? And thank God, all that's happened. And you do fulfill me as a wife very well.
Thank you.
In every sense of the word, you're a wonderful wife. But I had to learn that what makes our marriage good and what can make it better and become even better is when I learn to fulfill you. And then my assignment in the marriage is to make you happy. And I can guarantee that I've failed at that assignment plenty of times. But that really is what I'm supposed to do. And the same for you. And so if you go into a marriage looking just to get, and sometimes it's not even conscious, it's almost subconscious. Like you're going into it because you're wanting an emotional need met, or you're wanting, sexually to have your desires fulfilled, those kind of things. Like those things will get fulfilled. But if that's the purpose for you getting married, then you're going to make that marriage all about you. And it can't be the bedrock for you getting married. And what happens is that when you have two unhealthy people, and we see this all the time, you have two unhealthy people that come in and get married, and they are expecting the other one to meet their needs. Like this happens way more than what people realize. Instead of becoming interdependent, they become codependent.
Yes. Oof.
And then their health actually grows to a whole nother level. They reproduce unhealth in their marriage instead of producing health. And so you need to come to a place, if you're single and wanting to get married, or if you're married and you're like, wow, I wish I had known this before I got married.
Begin the journey.
Then start it. Yeah, then go for it. Begin to bring yourself, look at yourself, spirit, soul, and body, and say, what can I do to make myself be healthier? Not perfect. Nobody's perfect.
And so then,
but pursue health.
And another way to say this is like, you could ask yourself, where am I not whole?
That's good.
And Lord, now begin to show me how I can become whole.
That's really good.
And that's the first place, because the journey with the Lord in this, he's so kind and he's so patient and he's so loving that when you say, I know what, first off, when you recognize I'm not whole, then Lord, because sometimes that's the biggest step that we need to make, is that we realize that we're not a whole person, or we're not healthy in certain areas, but we maybe are in other areas. Lord, I want to be whole, because that's actually what you died for, is so that I wouldn't have to be lacking anything, but that I could be completely whole. And we realize that the totality of who we are is it's from him. Yeah. And it is in him. And so, Lord, begin to lead me in this journey of becoming whole, because he wants to journey with you in it. And the thing is that when we go to him and we acknowledge this, and then we allow him to lead us and guide us, is that he's the person that will show us where to start and how to start. And it'll be okay, and it'll be good, and there'll be like an ease in it.
That's good. And then you truly will be marriage material.
Yes.
Amen. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Family by Design. I pray that you were blessed as you listen to the word of the Lord for your life today. I want to encourage you to go on and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. If this ministry is blessing you, go to our website at www.wartmen.org. There you can find more resources, and you can also consider partnering with this ministry. If you like what we're doing, we just pray that you would at least join us in prayer and consider supporting us financially as we take the gospel deep into the hearts of people. Gospel preached, hearts awakened, and nations reformed.